Hey guys, tonight we step softly into a valley of olive trees and singing goats, where the stars overhead are closer than usual, because one of them has decided to live among the sheep. You're barefoot. The grass is cool, springy, and smells faintly of rosemary. Not the perfumed kind that grows in tidy kitchen pots, but wild and scratchy, and possibly hiding a few beetles. The sun has just ducked behind a hill, and what's left of its light has turned the sheep a flattering shade of pink. One bleats, another sneezes. You look down at your hands, they're smooth, too smooth, not a callus in sight. You've never held a rake, never tied a rope, never trimmed a hoof, or touched anything muddy on purpose. But here you are, clutching a wooden crook like it's an instrument, and eyeing your sandals like they owe you an apology. You are Apollo. Yes, that Apollo, god of music, medicine, prophecy, plagues, archery, truth, sunlight, and several other departments depending on which century you ask. So, why are you on sheep duty? Well, that depends who you ask. Some say you angered Zeus again. Something about hurling a few too many arrows during a divine disagreement. Others whisper you offended the fates by rewriting a prophecy mid-verse. Then there's the version involving the death of a cyclops and some celestial bureaucracy. Honestly, even the poets aren't quite sure. You'd explain, but you've stopped keeping track of your punishments. They're starting to blur together. You probably wouldn't survive this, but let's pretend. Pretend you're divine, but fallible, shining, but stuck. The kind of god who still knows how to sulk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? If it's around 3 a.m., I hope this flock lulls you to sleep. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. There's a rule you weren't told until you arrived. The goats have seniority. They don't bow. They don't stop chewing when you speak. They have seen dozens of men, some who claim to be gods, come through this valley with high hopes and soft shoes. The goats always win. Your first hour is uneventful. You step in something, then you do it again. A sheep sneezes directly into your knee. You take a breath and try to find some dignity. The air smells of thyme, sweat, and sour milk. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays like it's dying of gossip. A flock of birds swirls overhead, swifts, maybe? You never paid much attention before. Gods don't usually need to know which birds migrate and which birds steal cheese from unattended baskets. But tonight, you notice everything. The field, once golden in the sun, has turned silver and blue. The olives are in bloom, which means the air is sticky with pollen. Your nose itches. This is not the divine incense of Delphi. This is the nose-tingling, eye-watering scent of spring in the backcountry. You try to play a tune on your lyre, half out of nostalgia, half out of boredom, but the sheep start yelling, loudly. Apparently, they don't like Ionian scales before bedtime. One knocks over your stool. Another eats a tassel from your robe. You sigh, deeply. This is your life now. Still, there's something calming about the rhythm of shepherding. Walk, tap the crook, count the sheep, curse under your breath in ancient Doric. Your feet begin to remember the slope of the land. Your eyes adjust to the darkness. You even learn which of the sheep likes to wander. Her name is probably Artemis, the way she darts off alone. One old man from the village brings you a cracked clay cup of something called sour fig wine. It smells like despair, but tastes oddly refreshing. He doesn't ask why you look familiar. He just grunts, nods at the horizon, and says, "Storm's coming. The goats hate thunder." Then he leaves, whistling something that sounds suspiciously like one of your hymns, but off-key. You begin to understand the appeal of this life. No temples, no arguments, no gold-tipped chariots. Just soft grass, stubborn animals, and silence thick enough to wrap around your shoulders like a wool cloak. Later that night, you lie on a mat stuffed with dried reeds, under a sky so vast it seems to creak at the edges. You remember when you lit those stars. You remember when people used to sing your name during eclipses. But now, you're here. And the only thing singing is a frog. Terribly. Maybe that's the point. The sun is rising slowly behind the eastern ridge, not dramatically, just enough to turn the hills from charcoal to clay to dusty ochre. You've been awake for a while. There's no such thing as sleeping in when the goats demand attention like spoiled minor gods. One of them, scruffy, left eye cloudy, always chewing something she didn't find legally, has already escaped. Again, you roll up from your mat, spine crackling like dry reeds. You're still not used to the ground. Even gods, it turns out, are not immune to dew or insect bites. You scratch your ankle, a mosquito sighs in defeat. The flock is already murmuring. Sheep bleat like gossiping uncles. A pair of goats headbutt each other in a dispute over a patch of weeds. There's a rhythm here. Stretch, grunt, chew, chase, nap. You're not in Olympus anymore. But maybe Olympus needed a break from you. You stretch your arms to the sky. Somewhere in the clouds, the other gods are probably having ambrosia without you. Or not. Their moods change like weather, unpredictable, full of thunder and rumor. Here, the only rumor comes from the shepherds. The valley is called Timoesa, though no one writes that down. It means place of time, but some of the villagers whisper it actually means the place where gods come to sulk. They say the hills are older than the myths, that once a titan wept into the soil and made the thyme grow wild. Others say the flowers are cursed. You try not to pick any, just in case. The people here are blunt, not unkind, but uninterested in titles. One woman, your neighbor, calls you that fellow with the shiny stare. Another just grunts and hands you a loaf of barley bread when you pass. It's hard as marble and tastes like scorched patience. You eat the whole thing. That earns you a wink or a threat. Hard to tell. You've begun to recognize the social order of the flock. The older ram, nicknamed Socrates by the kids, seems to lead, though mostly by standing still and looking unimpressed. There's a sheep named Pimna who chases grasshoppers, and another named Thistle who has one horn and too many opinions. And then there's Melantho, the goat with the sharp hooves and softer eyes. She's probably possessed by something minor and mischievous, maybe a spirit of abandoned lunches. She once stole a priest's shoe. You respected that. After the morning feeding, you settle on a rock to comb your hair with a carved wooden pick. It's olive wood, roughly shaped, and the handle is slightly burned from someone trying to sterilize it with fire. It's not elegant, but it smells like smoke and oil and a bit of last year's harvest. While you work through a stubborn knot, a boy appears, about 9 years old, barefoot and covered in yesterday's dust. He doesn't say hello. He just sits next to you, picks up a stick, and starts drawing a crude figure in the dirt. 4 legs, 2 horns, a little lyre. Is that me? You ask. He shrugs. I heard you used to be important. Mama says you're just tired now. You raise an eyebrow. Maybe both. He offers you a fig. It's slightly squished. You eat it anyway. There's no written record of Apollo's time as a shepherd. That's the funny part. We know the myth: he was punished or exiled or bored and served under King Admetus in Thessaly for a year. But the details? Missing, fragmented, scattered in half-remembered hymns and pottery illustrations that may or may not be metaphors. Some historians think the whole story was political, a way to humanize a god who had gotten too big for his sandals. Others think it was religious propaganda proof that even the divine must suffer work in silence. And still others think it was just a joke, a clever nod to the irony of power. You're not sure what you believe. You're too busy trying to figure out if that noise behind the fig tree is a wild dog or Melantho again. Spoiler, it's Melantho, with someone's missing tunic in her mouth. Around midday, the shepherds gather in a shallow bowl of land they call the belly of the earth. It's really just a patch of flat dirt surrounded by flowering broom and collapsed stones, possibly from a shrine no one remembers. Someone's brought cheese wrapped in vine leaves. Another has olives still brined in ash, which taste like salty charcoal but go down well with goat's milk. There's bread, hard as yesterday, and honey that smells faintly fermented. The flies love it. So do you. You say nothing, just chew and nod and listen. This is where the gossip lives. The temple priestess was seen walking backward into the stream again. The harvest will be late. Too many crows, too few bees. The new tax collector has a lazy eye and a jealous dog. And someone claims they saw you glowing the other night. You deny it, but not very hard. Later, an old man with knees like cracked pottery leans over and murmurs, "You remind me of someone. My brother, dead now, thought he was a god too." You nod, respectfully. "What happened to him?" He chuckles. "Married a goat. Regretted it." Then he pours you more fig wine. By evening, the hills buzz again with insects and footfalls, and the sound of young rams headbutting a tree for no reason. You sit beside a sleeping lamb. Its ears flick in a dream. You stroke its back gently, and it lets out a long, peaceful snore. You watch the moon climb like it's trying not to disturb anything. You wonder if the gods miss you. Then you yawn, stretch your arms, and try not to notice that your hands have gotten a little rougher. There is a moment every morning, just before the heat takes hold, when the entire valley smells like sheep breath and crushed oregano. It is not a good smell. You're awake because one of the lambs screamed at a pine cone. No danger, just confusion. But now the whole flock is up, and the day begins like a badly timed festival. No trumpets, just farts and feet. You, Apollo, god of radiant beauty, guardian of oracles and plague arrows, are standing barefoot in a puddle of something unpleasant. It's warm, it's sticky, it's not yours. You try to move with dignity. The sheep do not care. You try to speak to them, "Sons of fleece, ye children of grass, hear the voice of the golden lyrist." One of them coughs. Another walks directly into a bush. You remind yourself this is part of the punishment, or a metaphor, or something. But the truth is simpler. Sheep don't recognize gods. They recognize grass, water, shade, and the sound of barley being shaken from a bag. That's it. You could be Zeus himself and they'd still kick over your lunch if you left it too close to a rock. You begin to appreciate the skills of mortal shepherds. They don't use spells. They don't sing the wind into stillness. They have sticks, loud whistles, and suspiciously accurate throws of small pebbles. One boy named Damar throws a pebble at a fleeing lamb and hits its rump dead center, sending it back to the group like it never left. You clap. He blinks at you like you've complimented dirt. "It's not hard," he says. "Just know where they'll be stupid." You nod, like that's wisdom from a scroll. You follow the flock across the hill toward a shaded glade. This is the grazing spot they favor. Soft grass, no thorns, and a small stream that smells like mint and frogs. You sit on a lichen-covered stone and take out a hunk of cheese from a cloth bundle. It's already sweating in the sun, but you eat it anyway. The salt sticks to your fingers. You lick them clean. A sheep watches you do this. Judgingly, you stick your tongue out. He blinks, chews, wanders off. The thing is, even gods don't have infinite patience. By midday, your robe is torn, your feet are muddy, and you've lost your crook twice, once to a curious goat and once because you used it to scratch your back and threw it too far in frustration. The gods of Olympus would be laughing, except they probably already have. You sit under a tree and mutter a curse involving Dionysus and itchy tunics. But then something strange happens. You fall asleep, not a divine trance, not a prophetic vision, just actual sleep. The kind that curls into your spine like a cat and lulls your brain into stillness. When you wake, the sheep are still there. No one has wandered far. A young ewe is napping beside your leg, her head touching your sandal. Somewhere, a grasshopper chirps like an old harp. You're startled, not by the sheep but by the peace. This life is boring, dirty, uneventful, but it's also quiet. And it's been centuries since you truly listened to quiet. There is a story the shepherds tell over and over, with slight variations and plenty of elbow nudging about a man who claimed to be the reincarnation of Helios. He bragged, constantly, said he could predict lightning and charm snakes. Then one day he tripped on a turtle, knocked himself unconscious, and woke up claiming he'd spoken to the sun. Now he sells goat milk at the market, still talks to the sky. Everyone's fond of him, but no one gives him the good olives. You think about that story often, not because you fear becoming him, but because you understand him. You're adjusting. You whistle now sometimes. You've learned two different ways to call sheep: a low rolling hum that means follow, and a high, annoying trill that means get out of the bucket. They mostly ignore both, but it makes you feel involved. One morning, you name 3 of the goats. They do not seem to care, but it gives you structure. One evening, a girl offers to braid your hair with dried thyme sprigs. You let her. She says you smell like river mud and sadness. You thank her. There's an ancient scroll that claims Apollo, during his time among mortals, never once touched manure. That scroll is incorrect. Today, you stepped in it, slipped in it, Saturday in it, used your crook to scrape it off a sandal, then offered your crook to someone else because they needed it more than your dignity. And you know what? The sheep still didn't care, but they followed you anyway. Evening falls like a slow blanket. Not dramatic, not divine, just the kind of dusk that turns sheep into vague white blobs and makes everything smell more like itself. The thyme gets louder. The olive trees sweat their scent. Somewhere, a fig rots quietly on the ground. A moth does acrobatics near your ear, and you don't even flinch. You're too tired to be godly right now. You drag your feet toward the sleeping area, which is, generously speaking, a straw-filled depression between a crumbling stone wall and a nettle bush. The wall may have once been a stable, or a shrine, or maybe just a poorly planned fence. No one knows anymore. You drop your bag next to the others. It contains your robe, now crusted with unknown substances, half a barley cake, and a jar of olive oil with someone else's initials scratched into the side. You pull the jar out now, not for cooking, for bathing. In the absence of proper soap, ancient Greek shepherds used oil. Thick, golden, slightly nutty-smelling olive oil. Rub it on your skin. Scrape it off with a curved metal blade called a strigil. That's the routine. You've never liked it. The oil gets into places. The strigil makes a weird noise, and you always end up smelling like a salad. But tonight, you go through the motions. You pour a palmful of oil onto your shoulder. It slides down your arm like reluctant syrup. You rub it in. Pick up the strigil bent from use and scrape. Dirt, sweat, sheep residue. Gone. Sort of. A toad watches from a rock. You give him a polite nod. Other shepherds begin arriving, one by one, bedding down in their own scruffy corners of the earth. Damar curls up using a sandal as a pillow. A woman named Hedea whispers a song to her dog. Someone starts a game involving throwing pebbles into a hollow gourd, and no one keeps score. It's not that kind of game. The stars are blooming. That's the only word for it. Blooming. As if the sky has begun opening its windows, letting out its glitter. You lie back and stretch. The straw underneath you crunches with protest. It's lumpy, possibly infested. Smells faintly like goat breath and old cheese. But it's home. For now. One of the best-kept secrets in rural history is this. Shepherds never really sleep alone. The Fireflies arrive in squadrons, blinking in patterns that no human has ever managed to decode. A hedgehog shuffles past your elbow. Somewhere behind the old fence, a fox yips once and is ignored. You think you hear music. You strain your ears. But it's just crickets, performing their annual symphony. Your back aches in 5 places. Your elbow is resting on a small rock that refuses to move. Your blanket is made of coarse wool and questionable stitching, but you're warm, mostly. You're also a little proud. You didn't panic when the oil bottle leaked. You didn't complain when your cheese had ants. You didn't accidentally smite anyone today. The fire's low now, smoldering. The embers look like tiny gods in their own right, small, red, flickering, furious. They crackle at your thoughts. You watch them and whisper to yourself. Once, they sang my name when they lit fires like this. Someone hears you. It's the old man again, the one with the knees and the goat stories. They don't sing it now, he says. Does that bother you? You shrug. Maybe. Not enough to get up. He nods, then drops a twig into the fire and murmurs something in a dialect so old it smells like dust. You recognize 3 words. Star, bread, and forgive. You both fall silent. There's a myth that fireflies are born from fallen stars. That when a god drops something, anger, joy, or a careless tear, it lands on the earth and flickers until it forgets how to shine. You wonder if that's what you're doing now. Flickering. The ground is harder than marble. The air is full of smoke and sheep burps. The straw scratches your calves every time you shift. But the breeze? The breeze is perfect. It smells like fennel and charcoal, and it carries no expectations. Tonight, a baby goat curls beside your feet. You don't know whose it is. It doesn't seem to care. You wiggle your toes. It grumbles in response. You say nothing. You just watch the stars. They don't twinkle, by the way, that's an illusion. They burn steadily, fiercely, millions of miles away, just like you used to. Now, you rest. Tomorrow, there will be more walking, more bleeding, more forgetting that you were ever golden. And you're beginning to think, that's fine. The first time a villager calls you the weird one, it's said with a mouth full of lentils and no malice whatsoever. You're at the communal table. It's really just a long slab of olive wood balanced on two upturned barrels, but it serves its purpose. Meals here are loud, crumbly, and often involve shouting about onions. You reach for a piece of barley bread, and someone across from you, elbows deep in fig jam, leans over and says, "We all think you're odd, but polite." Odd and polite. End quote. You blink. Thank you. They nod. You're welcome. And that's that. The truth is, you don't quite blend in. You speak too precisely. You walk like someone who's used to being followed. You still have moments where your fingers twitch toward a lyre that isn't there, and you occasionally quote proverbs no one's heard of in centuries. Also, there was that one time you accidentally cursed the well. Not on purpose. You just muttered something about dried up hope, and then the rope broke, and everyone got suspicious. To be fair, you've done little to dissuade them. You arrive at market and ask questions no one asks. How old is that cheese? Who carved the figwood spoon? Where did the basil seeds come from? You inspect wool like a priest reading omens. You buy the cheapest sandals not because you're frugal, but because they make the best noise when you walk. Flap, flap, flap. It's comforting. And of course, there's your singing. You hum to the sheep. You whistle to the breeze. You recite full hymns while collecting firewood. Someone once asked if you were possessed by a wandering philosopher. You told them yes, and they gave you a pomegranate. There's a woman named Lyre who sells onions out of a cracked wagon. She's missing 2 teeth and has one eyebrow that's always suspiciously raised. She has decided that you are, in fact, a cursed prince. Exiled, she says to anyone who'll listen. Or maybe transformed. Look at his toes, too clean. That's not natural. You glance down. Your toes are covered in goat spit. She insists. A boy named Nestor believes you're an oracle. He follows you at a distance, writing down everything you mutter under your breath. The goats are whispering again. That's probably important, he says, scribbling furiously. You consider correcting him, but honestly, it's kind of nice to be believed. There's even a rumor that you're not really human at all, that you're a spirit sent by Artemis to protect the valley, or a punishment from Hades, or a wandering god pretending to be humble for some unknowable reason. You smile at that one, not because it's accurate, but because they're starting to get close. Still, not all attention is friendly. A few elders eye you with that tight-lipped look that says, "I know what your kind did to my cousin's goat." They mutter about your presence, your posture, your tendency to stare at the moon too long. One even claims your breath smells like cedar, which is not a normal smell for someone who eats onions 3 times a day. One night, a woman tosses salt at your feet, for luck, or protection, or both. You thank her. Despite all this, you're not lonely. There's something about being the village eccentric that gives you a kind of permission to observe, to drift, to exist without expectation. You're the odd one, which means no one asks you to explain yourself. You get the slightly burnt end of the bread. You're allowed to sit on the good rock near the market. You're the only one who gets away with feeding the goats fermented apples. They get tipsy. You get blamed. Then you smile. And they all sigh and go back to complaining about taxes. It's a strange kind of exile, not from Olympus, but from familiarity. Here, your name means nothing. Here, your powers are useless. Here, you're just a man with strange hands and too much poetry in your voice. And for some reason, that's starting to feel okay. One morning, a little girl runs up to you with a flower crown made of weeds and bee wings. She places it on your head and says, "Now you're a real shepherd." You don't correct her. You just adjust the crown, pick up your crook, and head back into the hills. There are few things more humbling than trying to milk a cow who does not respect you. You have faced monsters. You've sung songs that made stone weep. You once wrestled death into submission for 3 full days. But this cow, she does not care. Her name is Eurythemis, and she is mostly legs, eyes, and attitude. Her tail swings like a judgmental metronome. She stares at you with the deep, patient loathing of someone who has been milked incorrectly too many times. You approach with what you believe to be confidence. She responds by sighing loudly and lifting her rear hoof just high enough to remind you, "This is my barn now. The milking stool is crooked. The bucket is dented. Your hands are not ready for this." They were trained for lyres and scalpels, not teats. Still, you sit, you breathe. You recall what that quiet woman from 2 villages over told you. Don't squeeze like you're angry. Coax like you're apologizing. It sounds like relationship advice. But you try it. You reach under. You pause. You whisper something that might have once been a prayer or an apology to all cows everywhere. And there it is. Milk, warm, steady, smelling faintly of hay and mammal. A success. A single, glorious stream. It arcs into the bucket with a little hiss and a lot of satisfaction. You glance up. Eurythemis raises one eyebrow. If cows had mouths, you're fairly sure she'd be smirking. You keep going. 2 squeezes. Pause. 2 squeezes. Shift. Your thighs ache. Your wrists cramp. You sweat in places that shouldn't sweat in spring. The cow chews her cud and releases a fart that could kill a small hero. You power through. There's something almost sacred about the rhythm, though. Milking in ancient Greece wasn't just labor, it was economy, survival, ritual. Milk became cheese, yogurt, butter, or more often, something in between that defies modern labels but made great soup. Some shepherds believed cows had souls connected to the stars, the idea that milk carried a kind of cosmic nourishment. Some thought cows must be spoken to softly, to avoid spoiling the milk with bad energy. A few even swore that if you milked while humming a certain hymn, the yield would double. You try humming, just in case. It doesn't double, but Eurythemis stops glaring for a moment. After half an hour, your bucket is half full, your back is completely ruined, and you have learned 3 things. The stool will always wobble more when you least expect it. Cows do not respond to flattery. You are no longer above anything. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve. A small child watches from behind a hay bale. When you make eye contact, they give you a thumbs up and vanish. You feel oddly proud. The villagers see you returning from the barn with your bucket. "Did she let you live?" one man asks, biting into an onion like an apple. You nod. She's generous. When she's in the mood. A woman laughs. "You've lasted longer than that last boy," he cried into the cheese. You nod again. "I get it." Later they serve your milk at dinner, mixed with honey and crushed mint. It's good, rich, slightly grassy, and somehow satisfying in a way no ambrosia ever was. You sip slowly. No one thanks you. That's not how this village works. But someone passes you the bowl of figs without being asked. That's enough. As night falls, you visit the cow again. Not to milk, just to check. Eurythemis is asleep. Or pretending. You whisper, "Thank you." She flicks an ear. You take that as forgiveness. Back at your straw mat, your hands ache. You stare at your palms. Blistered, smudged, proud. The gods don't talk about this part. The bruises of humility. The burns of effort. The strange satisfaction of doing something deeply, pointlessly, beautifully mortal. You lie down. The sheep snore. The fireflies blink. And your dreams, for once, smell faintly of hay and fresh milk. It starts with a hum. Not a hymn. Not a chant. Not some ancient melody passed down from oracles or carved into the walls of Delphi. Just a hum, low, simple, not particularly inspired, definitely not in tune. You're sitting on a flat rock overlooking the grazing slope, watching the sheep chew their way through the valley like living clouds with poor coordination. A gentle breeze brushes your shoulders, and something in your chest stirs. So you hum, and the sheep ignore you completely. This is a new kind of performance. There's no audience, no priest waving incense, no temple girls dancing in sequence, just a scattered flock, a tired god, and the soft whisper of time brushing against your ankles. You try a tune, one you haven't sung in centuries. It once brought tears to queens and trembled the leaves of sacred laurel trees. Now it mostly makes a nearby goat sneeze. Still, you keep going. You play with tempo, you add words, you rhyme wool with cool and cheese with please, and laugh quietly at yourself. A young lamb barely more than a puffball, with legs wanders up and lies down near your feet. You pause your song, unsure whether it's resting or judging. It lets out a sigh. You take that as approval. Ancient shepherds were often singers, though not the dramatic, temple-trained kind. Their songs were short, repetitive, built for walking or keeping rhythm while shearing. Some sang to the animals, some to the gods. Others sang just to stay awake under the stars. Many of those songs are lost or were never written down to begin with. Some scholars debate whether the rural folk even considered them songs in the first place. Just breath and habit and survival, disguised as melody. You find that idea beautiful. You try one now. Chew your grass. Don't eat the rope. Don't run off that slippery slope. It's not great, but it fits the moment. A boy named Pylos hears you and joins in. His voice cracks, and he's 2 syllables behind. You both laugh and keep going anyway. Soon a few others join. A small choir of off-key, dust-covered, sunburned shepherds. The notes drift up, uneven and unrefined, but they fill the air like dandelion fluff, soft, unnecessary, delightful. One of the older women claps, offbeat, but with enthusiasm. The goats seem unimpressed. Melantho headbutts a shrub in protest. But the sheep stay calm. The wind settles, and for a brief moment, the valley holds its breath. You think about how music once pulsed through your fingertips like lightning, how your lyre could summon visions, change minds, stir tides. Now you're just making up songs about wool balls and sunburns. And somehow, that feels closer to the truth than all those temple performances ever did. You lie back on the rock. The stone is warm from the sun. You let your voice wander, half melody, half nonsense. The others drift off to their duties. The sheep nap in dappled shade. And in that lazy silence, you remember something from long ago. A line from a forgotten lullaby, sung to you once by a mortal who didn't know your name. Even gods must sleep when the grass is sweet and no one calls their name. You hum it again. No audience. Just a god and his flock. And the sound of chewing. The fire is too small for warmth, but big enough to keep the shadows respectful. It flickers in its shallow stone ring, fed slowly with olive twigs, barley husks, and a single sandal strap that caught fire by accident, but made an oddly pleasant scent when it burned. You sit close, not for heat, just for company. The embers glow like coals in a temple brazier, but no incense rises tonight. Just smoke, light, and the faint smell of scorched grain. A pot sits over the flames. Inside, barley, overcooked, slightly burnt, and flecked with herbs someone swore were edible. It smells like nostalgia and regret. You stir it anyway. Dinner is dinner. Above you, the moon is full. Not a perfect circle, slightly flattened at the top, like a loaf of bread just before it collapses. The stars blink politely behind it. Somewhere, a nightbird screeches. You stare into the sky and remember when people used to say you pulled the moon across the heavens in a chariot. They were wrong, of course. That was someone else's job, but you never corrected them. It's hard to interrupt awe. Now, no one stares at the sky when you pass. except maybe the sheep, and they're mostly looking for predators. The fire pops. You look down. The barley has become something between porridge and ash. You take a bite. It's awful, but you eat 2 more spoons, just to prove you're still part of this world. There's a story passed around among the shepherds about the night wind. They say it listens, that if you speak your secrets to the wind between midnight and cock's first crow, it carries them to someone who needs to hear them or forget them. Tonight, someone tries it. A girl named Tyke stands up, walks a few paces from the fire, and says something quietly into the dark. No one asks what she said. No one laughs. A few nod. A few look away. A boy pokes at the fire, pretending not to listen. You think about trying it, but you don't. Not yet. Instead, you pull your blanket tighter and stare into the embers. There's comfort in fire, in the controlled burn of something ancient, in the glow that doesn't demand. You once commanded fire. Now you wait for it to cook your barley. It's an adjustment. An old man named Nicandros takes a seat beside you. He's mostly bones and beard. Smells like vinegar and woodsmoke. He hands you a reed flute. Play something, he says. Nothing fancy. You turn it in your fingers. It's chipped, a bit damp, barely in tune. Perfect. You play. Slowly. A tune with no name, no tempo, no prophecy inside it. Just breath and reed. A sheep coughs somewhere. Nicandros listens. He doesn't smile, but he doesn't leave either. That's enough. The smell of burnt barley clings to your robe. The moon has moved. Someone is snoring gently. The flute lies across your lap, warm from your hands. You feel still. For a moment, you are not a god, not a shepherd, not a name carved into stone or whispered in prayers. Just another warm body in the night. And just before sleep takes you, you whisper to the wind not a secret, but a question. Do they still remember my voice? The breeze does not answer, but it doesn't leave either. It begins with a silence, not absence of sound, but a thickening of air, like the valley has paused, inhaled, and forgotten to exhale. The sheep feel it first. One of them always, the nervous one, lets out a short, anxious bleat. The others twitch, shift, turn their faces toward the hills. You follow their gaze. Nothing yet, just clouds, swollen and gray like bruised figs. But something is coming. Then, a cool drop lands on your arm, another on your cheek, then a dozen more. And suddenly, the sky exhales. Rain in this valley doesn't knock. It pours. Not violently, not with drama, just insistently. Like a memory you didn't ask for, returned all at once. Within moments, your robe is wet. Your hair drips. The sheep scatter toward the old olive grove, instinct guiding them to the trees that drip less than others. You follow, soaked, unbothered. This isn't divine rain. It's real rain, earthy, personal, persistent. It smells like bronze. You don't know why. Maybe it's the soil, iron-rich, ancient. Maybe it's the moss-covered stones, or the fact that some part of this place was once a battlefield, long before these sheep ever grazed here. Or maybe your memory is mixing things again. Rain always smelled like bronze when you were angry. Now it just smells like old copper coins in time. You huddle beneath an olive tree. Its branches creak, heavy with fruit and secrets. You're joined by Melantho, the goat, who looks offended that the weather dares interfere with her routine. She doesn't come near you, but she stays in your general vicinity. That's affection, in goat terms. You adjust your robe, which is now plastered to your skin like an overly affectionate jellyfish. You sigh. Ancient shepherds had a rule: don't waste a good rain by complaining. They used it to rinse wool, clean clay pots, and wash away the smell of questionable cheese experiments. Some sang in the rain. Others used it as a reason to rest, nap, or tell mildly inappropriate jokes about thunder gods with bladder issues. You've heard worse theology. A boy named Pylos joins you under the tree, soaked to the bone, holding a crooked stick like a sword. He doesn't speak, just sits, breathes. Then, without looking at you, he says, I like the sound it makes when it hits rocks. You nod. I like the way it makes everything look silver. I hate how it makes my feet squish. You both laugh. Quietly, you look out across the field. The rain has turned the valley into a painting, grays, greens, and the occasional bleeding white blob running for shelter. The distant hills blur like half-remembered dreams. There's something strangely holy about it. Not capital H holy, not temple marble and laurel wreaths, just the kind of holiness that appears when no one's trying to make it. Rain on wool, mud on sandals, steam rising from the fire pit you forgot to cover. The villagers don't come looking for you. They know rain means rest, no herding, no market, no loud declarations about bread or taxes, just waiting, listening. Someone passes around a pot of warm fig mash under a canvas. You catch the scent on the wind and smile. You'll get some later, maybe. For now, you watch the rain. You press your back against the tree. The bark is rough, real, ancient. You close your eyes and let the bronze smell fill your nose. It carries with it 1,000 other smells: goat, hair, wet wool, broken grass, old smoke, fresh mud. You memorize them. You don't know when you'll smell these things again. Somewhere, lightning flashes, far off. No thunder follows. You murmur a song, half forgotten, the kind they used to sing to keep boats from sinking. It doesn't apply here, but the rhythm fits the rain. Melanto snezes. You take that as applause. You're squatting in the wet grass, rearranging a pile of disgruntled sheep into something resembling a herd when you hear it. 2 notes breathy, cracked, and smug. It's the kind of sound a tree might make if it were trying to flirt, or sneeze, or both. You freeze, slowly turn, and there he is. Pan, naked, muddy, and utterly pleased with himself. He's leaning against a boulder that may or may not be part of an old shrine, his hooves caked with damp soil, and one eye half-lidded like he's trying to look mysterious, but forgot how expressions work. He grins. Heard you've taken up agriculture, he says, motioning vaguely at your crook like it offends him. You sigh. It's called shepherding. Is it? He snorts. Because from here it looks like divine self-sabotage. You consider walking away, but that would mean leaving the flock with Pan, which would result in them either developing anxiety or poetry, depending on his mood. Pan is not like the other Olympians. He smells like fermented berries, damp moss, and a story you're not sure you want to hear. He is technically a god of shepherds, but where your punishment has made you humble, his portfolio is more chaotic. He doesn't herd animals so much as convince them to do weird things for fun. He produces his flute, 7 uneven reeds bound with what might be goat gut, and begins to play. It's terrible, brilliantly terrible. Every note is a bray, a honk, a hiccup that sounds like it came from the soul of a wine jug. The sheep twitch. The goats perk up. One of them begins to sway. Slowly. You rub your temples. You know, he says between wheezy toots, they used to worship me here, this valley. Pan's Hollow, they called it. They also used to burn offerings to onions, you reply. A culinary high point. He plays another series of notes. The melody stumbles into something vaguely rhythmic. The goats love it. You do not. Despite yourself, you remember the old debates. Who invented the flute? Pan claims it. Hermes claims it. A few mortals claim it too. Pan insists his version came from Love, a girl named Syrinx, who turned into reeds to escape him. Romantic, if you ignore the parts that sound like a police report. You never liked the flute. Too breathy, too slippery, too mortal. You were always a Lyre person. Pan knows this. That's why he keeps playing. You could have had music halls named after you, he says, mock serious. Instead, you're here, singing to sheep. You gesture at the flock. They listen. He snorts again. They stare. You shrug. That's more than most gods get. He pauses, stares at you for a beat longer than necessary. You're changing. You don't reply. The rain starts again. Softer this time. Less announcement, more reminder. The smell of wet wool fills the air. The sheep cluster together. The goats follow Melantho, who follows nothing. Pan squints upward. I should go. Too wet for hoofwork. You're already covered in mud. It's strategic. He tucks his flute into whatever pouchless void he stores things in and begins to walk off. Then stops. Hey, golden boy, keep singing. Even bad songs have echoes. You blink, but he's already gone. Just hoof prints and a lingering smell of goat wine and damp laughter. You return to the flock. A lamb nuzzles your leg. You hum a single note. It's a little off-key, but that feels right tonight. You'd think cheese would be a simple affair. Milk, thyme, salt, a little patience. But no, in this village, cheese is a hierarchy, a game of strategy, a socio-political minefield hidden behind the pleasant aroma of fermentation. You learn this the hard way. It begins innocently enough. You're sent to the cheese cave, a damp, lichen-lined hole in the side of a hill, with a wooden door that's warped from decades of damp arguments. Inside, shelves upon shelves of wheels, rounds, lumps, and half-labeled blobs of dairy. The air is cool, thick, and smells like someone bottled 10 generations of hard work and a little foot sweat. You enter. You bow your head instinctively. Not out of reverence, the ceiling is just low. You find Thessaly, keeper of the cave. Small, wiry, and dressed in 5 layers of cloth despite the heat. She eyes you like a rotting gourd might be hiding in your pocket. You're the singer? Sometimes, you reply. Don't touch the sheep cheese. You nod, then touch nothing. Thessaly gives you a task. Turn the rounds. Just rotate them, gently. Wipe away the sweat. Don't ask questions. Naturally, you ask a question. Why do these two have different herbs on top? She raises an eyebrow. Because some people believe fennel keeps the mold kind, and others believe it invites misfortune and poor marriage prospects. Oh, you've already said too much. There are cheeses here older than several of the children in the village. Each one has a name, a story, a feud. That one on the middle shelf? It was turned too early last week, and now no one will speak to it. That cracked wheel on the far left? A legendary cheese, once entered in a festival, then disqualified for emotional misconduct. You try not to laugh. You fail. Cheese-making in ancient Greece was serious business. It wasn't just a food, it was a preservation tactic, a social tool, a currency. A household's reputation could rise or curdle depending on the quality of their cheese. Marriage proposals were sometimes preceded by an offering of dairy. Will you take my daughter? Also, here is a round of thyme, aged goat. You're not sure which sealed the deal more often. While turning a particularly grumpy lump of ewe's milk, you hear whispers from the far end of the cave. 2 elders, debating. She salted it too early. She did not. You just don't understand sheep. It's personnel. Everything with you is personal. They stop when they see you listening. Out. Thessaly snaps. He's absorbing the tension. You exit. Slowly. Carefully. Outside, the sun feels aggressive after the dark coolness of cheese diplomacy. You sit under a fig tree and breathe. A girl walks by, sees the faint smear of mold on your sleeve, and gives you a wide berth. Cave drama? She asks. You nod. Mild today. No one cried. She whistles. You'll be promoted. Later, at dinner, someone passes you a small wedge of cheese. Pale, yellow, crumbly. A whisper of time and something you can't place. You nod thanks. Thessaly sees you from across the fire and gives you the tiniest nod back. You've been accepted, not as a cheesemaker, not as an expert, but as someone who turned the wheels without turning the gossip, which, here, is enough to earn a meal and a second helping. As the stars blink awake overhead, you lie back beside the sheep. The wedge sits warm in your belly, and for once, you sleep without dreaming of Olympus, only of brine, and maybe a hint of bay leaf. The sheep don't want to enter the grove. They stop, stare, shuffle backward. One lets out a bleat that sounds suspiciously like a protest. You can't blame them. The trees here are old, not the romantic storybook kind, but the kind that lean toward you when no wind is present. Their bark peels in patterns that look a little too much like script. And then there's the buzzing. Not loud, but constant, as if the whole grove is exhaling an insect. You scratch your shoulder, not because you're nervous, because something is already biting you. Ticks, tiny, stubborn, relentless. They love the sheep. They adore goats. But what they really worship is bare ankles, and yours are divine. You spot 3 before you reach the first olive tree. Flick one, curse another. The third gets you, right behind the knee. You sigh. Immortality, you whisper. And still I itch. Ancient Greeks believed in all kinds of spirits. Dryads in the trees, nymphs in the streams, even minor deities in certain vines. Some were helpful. Most were picky. All required manners. Here, among the gnarled trees and suspicious shadows, the rules change. You touch no bark without permission. You step lightly. You hum as you walk, not for the sheep, but for the trees, a signal of peace. Some shepherds leave offerings, figs, honey, the occasional carved spoon. Today, you leave a crumb of cheese, just in case. The sheep finally follow. Melantho pauses at the edge, glares at a low-hanging branch, and snorts. You suspect she has history with this grove. Inside, it's cooler, damp. The air smells like wet earth and time that forgot how to bloom. You guide the flock through slowly, crook in hand, eyes scanning the underbrush for snakes, more ticks, and whatever that lump is beneath the old fig tree. It's probably a rock, or a cursed sandal. Either way, you avoid it. There's a stone circle here, barely visible under the leaves. Just 7 mossy chunks arranged in a lopsided ring. The children say it's where the tree spirits dance. The elders say it's where young goats disappear. You say it's a good place to sit and adjust your sandals. While you rest, a beetle the size of your thumb crawls over your knee. You flick it gently. It lands on a root and is immediately swallowed by a toad that did not previously exist. You nod to the toad. It blinks, unimpressed. Suddenly, from a branch overhead, a voice. You missed a tick. You freeze. A girl, no more than 11, barefoot, leaves in her hair, sits perched on the branch like a cat. There, she says, pointing at your neck. Left side. You reach. She's right. You curse softly. You're the sun god, aren't you? Not today. She shrugs. Don't matter. The tree's like you. But not that one, she points. That one holds grudges. You look. It does feel judgmental. She leaps down without a sound, plucks a sprig of sage from the ground, and hands it to you. Burn that if the goats get twitchy. Keeps the twitching things away. Thank you, you say. Genuinely. She nods once, then vanishes. Not dramatically, just steps behind a trunk and is gone. You exhale. The sage smells sharp, clean, protective. You tuck it into your belt. Later, under open sky again, you scratch another bite. The sheep seem oddly calm. The wind feels lighter. You don't know if it was the girl, or the sage, or the fact that you left a cheese crumb in the ring. But tonight, the ticks are quieter. And so are you. It's midday, the sheep are sleeping, and you're elbow deep in a bucket of lukewarm goat curds when a voice calls out, "Excuse me, handsome stranger?" You turn, slowly, because no one in this village talks like that, and certainly no one here sparkles. There she is, Aphrodite, goddess of love, war-adjacent seduction, extremely curated drama, and sandals that somehow never get dirty. She's standing at the edge of the pasture in a flowing peplos that looks like it was woven out of wine and good decisions. Not a speck of dust on her. No sweat. No sheep bites. You, by contrast, have curd in your armpit and a goat licking your elbow. Oh no, you say flatly. Not today. What do you mean? She purrs, taking a dainty step forward. I'm just a lost traveler. You stare. She bats her eyelashes. A bee, apparently offended by the performance, buzzes into her hair. She swats it away with a curse that unravels a nearby flower. You try to ignore her. You go back to stirring curds. Have you seen the Temple of Hera? She asks, leaning against a post that does not consent to the flirtation. You know very well. It collapsed 70 years ago. Oh, she says, sighing dramatically. Then maybe I'm looking for the river oracle? That's a frog now. She finally drops the act and laughs. It's a bright, effortless sound that somehow makes the goats nervous. You really have gone feral, haven't you? You keep stirring. What do you want, Aphrodite? Just checking in, she says, strolling through the flock like she isn't wearing something that costs more than this entire hillside. You've been gone a while. There are rumors. I'm aware. Zeus thinks you're sulking. Hermes thinks you're writing a song about frogs. Ares thinks you're dead. He always does. She crouches beside you now, picking up a handful of hay and examining it like it's a scroll. Are you actually happy here? You pose. Not out of hesitation, just to breathe. The curds bubble softly. A sheep sneezes nearby. You look up. The sky is the color of old copper. The wind smells like grass, ash, and warm milk. Your hands are calloused. Your back aches. Your sandals are held together with goat hair and spite. I'm not unhappy. She tilts her head. That's dangerously close to contentment. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? A little. She stands, brushes non-existent dust from her knees. Then, casually, you know they're still singing about you. In Corinth, in Delos, even in Sicily. They always sing. Doesn't mean they're listening. She's quiet for a moment. A rare thing. You used to glow, you know. Not just when the sun hits you. From the inside. You nod. Now I sweat. Charming. She plucks a fig from a nearby tree and bites into it. The juice stains her perfect lip. Somehow, she makes it look like a sacred rite. Well, I should be going. Things to tempt. Wars to ignite. You know how it is. Unfortunately. Don't die here, Apollo, she says, in that faux playful tone she uses when she's worried. You raise an eyebrow. Don't fall in love with a goat again. She smirks. No promises. And then she's gone. Not in a puff of smoke. No petals. No flash. Just gone. You look down at your bucket of curds. Stir once more. Melantho watches you carefully. You murmur. She's not even the weirdest visitor this week. Melantho snorts. Which you take as agreement. There's a patch of moss beneath the elder tree that fits the curve of your spine like it was made just for you. Soft, damp, a little too fragrant. But after weeks of straw mats and root-knotted ground, it might as well be a divine mattress. You lie down, arms crossed behind your head, and stare up through the canopy. The light filters through in pale green and flickering gold. Somewhere above, the leaves whisper to each other. Not a breeze, not exactly, but the slow shifting of time made visible. The sheep have bedded down nearby, woolly bodies curled like clouds fallen to earth. Melantho, ever defiant, is half up a rock, chewing bark she clearly shouldn't be chewing. And you, former god of prophecy, are just a man lying on moss, thinking about dreams. You haven't dreamt of Delphi in weeks. Not really. No visions. No riddles. No sudden thunderclaps in your mind or floating words made of mist. Just sleep. Quiet. Uneventful. The kind mortals take for granted. You close your eyes and try to conjure the scent of incense, sharp pine, and ash. The cold stone of the oracle's chamber. The way the smoke curled into the shape of questions. It doesn't come. Instead, your nose fills with the smell of moss, goat, and the lingering ash of someone's burnt barley cake. There's an ache in your ribs. Not pain, just memory. The kind that blooms at dusk. You remember the days when people traveled for weeks just to ask you questions. When your answers shaped empires. When one wrong word could end a war or start one. Now, your greatest concern is whether Pimna, the lamb, has worms. She does. You gave her garlic and hope for the best. You drift. That strange in-between place where thoughts loop and memories drift sideways. You hear sandals on marble, a lyre being tuned, the echo of someone calling your name, your real name, in the exact pitch that made mountains lean forward to listen. But it fades. The moss holds you more firmly. The wool blanket scratches your chin. You open your eyes and realize you've been drooling slightly onto a beetle. The beetle is unamused. You wipe your chin with your sleeve and mutter something apologetic in an old dialect. The beetle trudges away. The stars begin to appear, one by one. Slow, soft, patient. A shepherd nearby begins to hum, low, repetitive, comforting. You close your eyes again, and this time, you see Delphi. Not as it was clean and sacred, but how it appeared in the quiet hours. After the pilgrims left, when the torches flickered, when the wind carried old hymns no one sang anymore. You walk through it, barefoot, dusty. No one stops you. You touch the stone column outside the chamber. It's warm. You do not enter. You just sit at the threshold, back resting against the ancient wall. And you wait. You wake to the sound of a sheep stepping on your sandal. The moss is damp. Your leg is asleep. But your chest feels lighter. And you realize you're no longer trying to remember the weight of prophecy. You're just remembering what it's like to rest. It starts with silence. Not the gentle kind, not the hush before sleep, or the pause between shepherd songs, but the kind of silence that has a shape. The kind that arrives suddenly, like someone blew out a candle the wind hadn't noticed yet. You look up from your bowl of lentils. The sheep are still. No bleating, no chewing. Even Melantho's jaw has stopped mid-munch. The younger lambs cluster tighter. A few press against your legs. Your knees feel their breath, rapid and warm. Then you hear it. One paw, then another. Soft, measured, deliberate. The wolves have returned. You were told they would. Not often, not loudly. Just now and then, when hunger met courage at the edge of shadow. They don't howl first. Not when they're serious. And tonight, they're serious. Ancient shepherds had a dozen ways of dealing with wolves. Clappers made of bone, pitchy torches, curses in dialects older than dirt. Some would hang wolf skulls near the grazing lands a warning. Others swore by urine lines. A few sang strange songs that only worked if you spat afterward. You have none of these tonight. You have a crook, a handful of stones, and your name. You stand slowly. The sheep part around you like fog, their eyes wide, reflecting firelight and fear. You step toward the grove's edge, toward the darkness that watches back. And then you see it. Eyes, low, wide apart. The glow of intelligence and indifference. The wolf doesn't growl, doesn't blink. It knows what you are, or maybe what you were. You take one more step forward. The stones in your hand feel like fruit, useless and temporary. You raise your voice, not loud, not theatrical, just steady. Go back, you say. The air does not move. There are easier meals elsewhere. Stillness. Then, from behind the wolf, a second pair of eyes. And a third. A small pack, young, hungry, but not reckless. You exhale. Then, quietly, you sing. Not a song of beauty. Not a lullaby. Something older. Something from the days when beasts walked beside gods and listened. A song without words. Just tone. Breath. A pulse that mimics the wind through cypress and the hush before sunrise. The wolves tilt their heads. One whines, and then, without a sound, they turn. Melt into the dark. Gone. Back at the fire, the shepherds pretend they weren't watching. But someone ladles you more lentils without being asked. Melantho resumes chewing. The lambs stretch. A boy says quietly, "I don't think they were afraid." You nod. Number just. Respectful. Respect is a strange thing out here. It's not medals, not praise, not temples. It's space. A moment. A distance someone chooses not to cross. The wolves gave you that. You stir your lentils, and you let yourself feel proud. Not God-proud, just moss-covered, sheep-bitten, storm-weathered mortal proud. You sleep that night with your crook beside you, not out of fear, just because it feels like part of you now. And somewhere, far off, a wolf howls. Not hunger, not challenge, just a reminder. It's bath day, not by choice, not because anyone asked, but because someone you suspect, Melantho, knocked over a pot of fermented barley mash directly onto your sleeping mat. Now you smell like regret and cheese rot, and the sheep refuse to lie downwind of you. So, bath day, you gather the essentials. A dense copper pot, a chunk of what claims to be soap but looks more like burnt bread, a coarse cloth that feels like it was woven out of bark and sarcasm, and one cracked clay jar of rainwater, mostly intact. You head to the stream. The water is cold, not refreshing, aggressively cold. You strip beside a flat rock and lower yourself in like a dignified glacier. You gasp, then curse, loudly, in 5 dialects. A frog stares at you from a nearby lily pad, clearly unimpressed. Now, about the soap. Ancient Greek rural soap wasn't soap as we imagine it. It was often a paste or ash-based lump made from animal fat, leftover oil, and lye scraped from burned wood. The villagers call it gray blessing. You call it burning sadness. It smells like olive pits and ancient guilt. You rub it on your chest. It sizzles slightly. That's not normal. You rinse. It clings. You scrub harder. Now it bites. You apologize to your skin and keep going. There's no privacy here. You can hear goats chewing behind a bush. Somewhere, someone is singing about onions. A child walks past, sees you, screams, and immediately forgets. You sigh and scrub your feet. The sun glints off the water. For a moment, you catch your reflection. You barely recognize yourself. Your beard's longer. Your eyes have lines. Your shoulders slope like someone who's carried buckets more than burdens. You look mortal. You reach up, touch your jaw. A smile appears, uninvited. Not bad. The frog burps. You dry off with the bark towel. It scratches everything. You hop on one foot to avoid stepping into a muddy print left by, let's say, a cow, but you know better. You dress in your cleanest tunic, which is only slightly moldy. Back at the village, someone sniffs you as you pass. Ash and mint, they say. Respectable. You beam. Later, by the fire, the old woman with the gossip spoon sits beside you. She squints, sniffs again, and nods. You bathed. Good. You were starting to smell like prophecy. You raise an eyebrow. Is that bad? Too much prophecy attracts bees. You vow never to test that theory. The sheep lie closer to you tonight. You don't know if it's the soap or the way your shoulders finally stopped aching. You fall asleep smelling faintly of ash, thyme, and something not entirely unpleasant. And in your dreams, no one calls you divine. They just call you clean, which, today, is more than enough. You're halfway through carving a spoon from fig wood poorly when you hear a whistle that doesn't belong to any bird or shepherd. Then a second one. Then the unmistakable sound of winged sandals landing in loose gravel. You don't look up. If you steal my spoon, you mutter, I swear by the goats, I will curse you with hiccups for a decade. Hello to you too, comes the reply, all grin. No guilt. Hermes, messenger of the gods, patron of liars, travelers, pickpockets, merchants, shepherds, and anyone who can talk their way into or out of a problem. He's leaning against the wall behind you, chewing something sticky and smug. You've really let yourself go, he says, eyeing your robe, which today is held together with a safety pin and optimism. You've really let yourself in, you reply. He chuckles. You always did like your punishment slow. Most of us would have staged a dramatic escape by now. Lightning, prophecy, maybe a song that makes the sheep rebel. That was last week. They chose Melantho. He walks around you once, twice, as if inspecting an artifact someone left in the rain. So, what's the story? Enlightenment through sheep droppings? You don't answer. Instead, you offer him a bite of barley cake. It's slightly burnt, faintly sour, and filled with wild herbs of uncertain effect. He sniffs it. This smells like passive aggression. That's the oregano. He eats it anyway. Hermes always had a way of appearing just when you were beginning to forget Olympus existed, when your shoulders finally stopped expecting attention, when your thoughts turned from divine disappointment to mundane, oddly joyful repetition. And yet, you don't mind the interruption. Not entirely. He sits cross-legged in the grass, Sandals hovering slightly off the ground because, of course, they do. So, he says, what have we learned? That goats don't appreciate musical theory. They never did. That cheese is political. That I snore, loudly. You pose, and that it's enough. Hermes raises an eyebrow. Enough? The moss, the curds, the spoon, the rhythm. It's not Olympus, but it's real. He's quiet for a moment. That's how you know he's actually listening. Then he reaches into the folds of his robe and pulls out a scroll. Unmarked, unsealed, smelling faintly of smoke and pine sap. It's from Delos, he says. They want a new hymn, one with fewer frogs this time. You take the scroll. You don't open it. Tell them I'm busy. Hermes smirks. You know you'll go back. Eventually. You nod. Probably. But not today. He stands, brushing non-existent dust from his knees. I brought something else. He reaches into a pouch that should not exist in the space-time structure of his tunic and pulls out a small item. Your lyre. The real one. Not the wooden practice harp the village kids pass around. This one gleams faintly. Smells of cedar, sweat, and the edge of a storm. He hands it to you without a word. You cradle it. It hums against your palms. The strings are slightly out of tune. You don't mind. You'll know when to play, he says. Then he's gone. No puff of smoke. No exit line. Just a breeze that smells of faraway markets and someone else's stolen sandal. You look down at the lyre, then at your unfinished spoon. You hum a note low, unsure. The sheep don't flinch. That's something. The first time you hear it, you think it's just the breeze. High on the hill, midday sun softening the stones. You're dozing beneath a half-dead fig tree. The sheep are scattered, lounging like royalty, bellies full and ambitions low. Then comes the sound, not loud, not urgent, just your name. Apollo, whispered, maybe, carried, slipped between leaves. You sit up, rub your eyes, look around. Nothing, except the wind keeps moving. You tell yourself it's a coincidence. Wind moves in strange ways through these hills past thorn bushes and broken shrines, through reed clusters and abandoned scarecrows. It gathers voices sometimes, old ones, new ones, ones that never belonged to mouths. But that name hasn't been spoken here in weeks. Not by humans, not by gods. You go about your day. You tend a goat with a limp. You smear a paste made from wild garlic and shame across its hoof. You sip lukewarm barley tea, chew bread that shatters rather than bends, and patch a hole in your robe using thread someone dyed with pomegranate peel. It is all incredibly ordinary. But every now and then, Apollo, on the breeze, not pleading, not accusing, just curious, like the world is checking to see if you still answer to it. That night, by the fire, the others tell stories. One is about a ghost dog that only barks during eclipses. Another's about a chicken that once laid an egg with a perfect map of the Aegean on its shell. You don't join in. You listen. Stir the pot. Watch the sparks. And then, again, your name, but not from the wind this time. From a child. Why do they call you the Sun Man? You blink. The boy is maybe 6, covered in dirt, smiling without agenda. Because I used to live higher up the hill, you say. He laughs, runs off, but the name clings. You try not to think about Delphi, or the temples, or the way your name used to echo across marble like it had its own legs. But memories are stubborn passengers. They ride in on steam from your tea, on the creak of your sleeping mat, on the pitch of a shepherd's song sung just slightly off, but close enough to hurt. The wind kicks up again the next day. You're on the slope, mending a fence, when it brushes past you with the scent of ash, time, and something metallic. Not blood, not wine, old bronze, the kind poured into bells no one rings anymore. And again, your name. This time, not alone. Apollo, come home. You don't know whose voice it is, but it's tired. You sit on the fence rail, sweat soaking your collar, crook across your knees, eyes closed. The sheep graze. The goats test boundaries. The wind waits. You whisper, "Not yet." The wind nods, or at least stops pressing. That night, your dreams are quiet. But just before waking, you see the sun rising from behind a mountain made of lyre strings. And someone not you is playing it. Badly. You laugh in your sleep. The sheep nearby roll over like nothing important is happening. You're tuning your lyre by the fire when it happens. A single string snaps. Not violently, not dramatically. Just a soft twang, like the sound of a thought changing its mind. You wince. Press your thumb to the place where the tension failed. It's the fourth string, the one that always played the note just under longing. You finger it out of habit. Nothing. Just silence, and a slack coil of gut thread that curls like a question. You set the lyre down and sigh. Somewhere, a sheep bleats. Then again, short, sharp, worried. You sit up straighter. Then you hear it. A second bleat. Smaller, distant, higher up the hill. Someone's missing. You grab your crook and rise to your feet. No panic, just motion. The kind of motion that starts in the knees and travels up the spine until your whole body is moving before your mind is caught up. The others don't notice. They're singing tonight a drinking song repurposed into a lullaby. The words make no sense, but the rhythm is comforting. You follow the sound. The stars are out, but not fully settled. The moon is low, lazy, trailing mist like a half-forgotten promise. You pass the edge of the olive grove, where the ground turns mossy and the trees seem to lean a little too closely together. You know this place. You don't love it. But the bleating grows louder. "I'm coming," you whisper. To the lamb, to the night, to yourself. Her name is Spira. She's new, small, more fluff than animal, and absolutely convinced she's in charge of her own destiny. She's standing near a thistle patch, one hoof caught in a tangle of root and vine. You kneel, gently unwind her, whisper nonsense words that used to mean power, but now mean, "Shh, little one, I've got you." She calms. You lift her into your arms. She smells like damp straw and infant anxiety. On the way back, you hum. Not for here, not for yourself, just to fill the space where fear used to sit. The tune is a simple one you made up earlier that day while trimming hooves. Something about three-legged stools and barley biscuits. Spira nestles into your elbow. The wind shifts. Your hum picks up the pitch your lyre would have carried the missing fourth string. But you find the note anyway. In your throat. In your step. In the weight of a warm lamb tucked against your ribs. You return to the fire. Someone makes space for you without a word. You sit. Place Spira on your lap. She sleeps instantly. Small hooves twitching like she's still climbing imaginary hills. You pick up the lyre. Pluck the remaining strings. The missing one hums along in silence, its absence perfectly tuned. Later someone asks, "Was she far?" You shake your head. Not far, just alone. A woman ladles warm honey into your cup. No praise, no applause, just warmth. You lie down with your lyre beside you. The sky sings in 100 tiny voices. The fire crackles. Spira breathes steadily. You match her rhythm. And in the distance, the knight leans back. He arrives just before sunrise. On a donkey. Wearing a robe too clean for someone who's ever walked through a goat pen. He doesn't announce himself. Just appears on the path like he's always been there. Posture straight. Face carefully arranged in the expression of someone who finds things beneath him, but still worth cataloging. His name is Polydamas, a priest of Hera, which is unfortunate for you because Hera has never fully forgiven you for the whole oracle favoritism incident, or that time you turned her favorite temple servant into a potted plant. It was temporary. He got better. Polydamas dismounts with practiced stiffness, like the donkey personally insulted his lineage. He walks past the goats, past the sheep, straight to where you're sitting on an overturned bucket, elbows deep in wool grease. "You," he says. You blink. "Me?" "You. It's not your first priest. Won't be your last. But this one comes with the scent of authority and crushed bay leaves. He carries a scroll. which is never good. There are rumors, he begins. Odd happenings. Glowing sheep. Singing goats. A child who claims a sun man fixed her cough with garlic and humming. You nod. Sounds serious. The elders say, you don't sleep much. Insomnia's contagious. And you talk to trees. They started it. He narrows his eyes. You have the look of a man who has touched a god. You stare at him. Hard. You have the look of a man who uses too much olive oil in his hair. He doesn't appreciate that. He sits beside the fire, uninvited. Sniffs the stew. Declares it unorthodox. Sniffs you. Declares you familiar. What's your name? He asks. I've had several. Your current one? Theo. He snorts. Tu simple. Try spelling it. He questions you for an hour. About the sheep, the weather, your knowledge of medicinal herbs, why the goats won't look him in the eye. You answer truthfully. Mostly. He says he's seen signs. Omens. Patterns in bird droppings and cracked fig pits. A god walks among us, he mutters, disguised, waiting. You glance at your robe, patched, stained, recently chewed. You look at your hands, rough, nicked, tired. You wonder if you'd recognize yourself in a temple anymore. Later, he performs a quick ritual in the old stone ring behind the pasture. Burns a sprig of rosemary. Mumbles something about unmasking. The smoke rises. Swirls. You feel a twinge in your chest. Not pain. Not fear. Just memory. You step back. Melanto pees on the altar stone. The moment breaks. He leaves just after midday. Doesn't say goodbye. Doesn't thank you for the lentil cake. Just mounts his donkey with a frown and mutters, something's wrong here. Something ancient. You wave. Let me know if you find it. That night, the fire burns low. You stare into it, silent. You pluck your lyre. One string, then two. The tune is uncertain, like a question no one wants to answer. But still, it plays. You weren't invited. No one is. Because in this village, weddings don't come with scrolls or seating charts. They happen when the barley's dry, and someone's father finally agrees. Today is one of those days. You learn about it the usual way. A goat wanders past with wildflowers tied to its horns. Then come the drums. Offbeat, enthusiastic, played by children with more rhythm than sense. Then the shouting celebratory, chaotic, overlapping generations of advice, threats, and badly remembered blessings. Someone grabs your arm. Wedding, they say. Now? Now. You have 5 minutes to prepare. You use none of them wisely. By the time you reach the gathering, a flat spot near the stone grove, recently cleared of most rocks and some of the snakes, your tunic is stained, your sandals are loose, and your legs are covered in a layer of perfectly unacceptable celebratory mud. Someone hands you a fig. You eat it without asking. The bride is radiant. Not in the goddess descending from a cloud way, no. She's glowing from sweat, stubbornness, and 3 weeks of barley harvest. Her dress is stitched with rosemary. Her ankles are muddy. Her smile is terrifying. The groom looks dazed. He should. Weddings here are loud, messy, sacred in a way that never touches marble. There is dancing, but no one remembers the steps. There is wine, but no one remembers the source. There are jokes shouted across generations that make no sense unless you've lived in the same valley for 40 years. You are handed a tambourine. You refuse. They insist. Now you're shaking it. Poorly. Someone throws olives. Someone throws rice. Someone throws a goat. That one is retrieved. Gently. There's a ritual, old, crooked, possibly invented this morning, where each guest places a stone at the couple's feet. Big stones, small stones, warm from pockets, cold from streams. You dig into your satchel and find yours. A smooth, flat river rock. It has no meaning. Until you hand it over. The bride takes it without ceremony and adds it to the pile. The groom tries to smile. He may be crying. It's unclear. Later, there's stew. It contains at least 5 things you can name and one you hope was a root. Children crawl under the tables. Elders sit in crooked chairs. Someone plays a flute with only 2 working notes. No one complains. You sit cross-legged on a blanket beside the fire. Your sandals are lost. Your cup is full. Your head feels light. The bride dances past, tosses a flower onto your lap. You look like you've lived here forever, she says. You smile. Feels like it? As the night winds down, you find yourself standing near the altar stone. Not part of the ceremony, just close enough to feel the warmth left behind. You hum, not for blessing, just because. Someone joins in, then another, as song forms. No melody, no words, just voices. The kind of sound that feels older than stone and softer than time. You return to your mat with mud on your knees and rosemary in your hair. You don't wash. You don't pray. You just lie down and dream of tambourines and stew. It starts with a cough. Not yours, you've been healthy for days now. This one comes from the next hill over. A short, sharp sound, followed by a whistle and a high-pitched hey that echoes just enough to carry. You pause mid-shearing. Then, from 2 fields away, another shepherd answers, I told you she's not his cousin. Embry. Laughter follows. A third whistle. Then quiet again. You blink, look down at the half-sheared sheep beneath you, who is watching this unfold with the kind of serene detachment only sheep can master. Don't look at me, you murmur. Even gauze need updates. The shepherds of these hills are many things. Quiet, grimy, sleep-deprived. But most importantly, they are organized. Not formally. Not with parchment or meetings. Just a system. The goat path behind the fig grove? That's the news corridor. The well near the acacia tree? That's the argument echo chamber. The flat rock behind Nicandros' hut? That's where the really serious topics happen, usually involving marriage, plague, or cheese theft. They have codes. A tug on an ear equals, he's lying. A 3-note whistle equals, she's in love again. Scratching your ankle while looking east equals, the taxes are late and the collector's donkey is sick. You've learned most of them now, not because anyone taught you, but because you listen. And listening, it turns out, is the one divine skill you never lost. This morning, a young shepherd named Theros tells you, while pretending to adjust his sandal, that the priest from 2 villages over got chased by a goose and now claims it was a divine omen. He says it honked 3 times and then bit his leg. That's clearly Hera. Obviously, you nod. The conversations are fast, half-coded, always mobile. Shearing, gossip. Watering, gossip. Pulling a tick from a lamb's ear, also gossip. And it's not all petty. There are things worth knowing. The stream to the east is running low. The eldest ewe in Damar's flock gave birth to twins for the first time in 10 seasons. A hawk has been spotted circling the slope where the youngest lambs sleep. You log it all, not because you're nosy, because out here, knowledge isn't power, it's protection. One shepherd, an older woman named Euthymia, stops by your fire one night. She sits, pulls off her sandal, and begins massaging her foot with the resigned fury of someone who walked 8 miles for someone else's wedding. You're quiet, she says. You nod. Quiet ones always get the good stuff first, she adds. The good gossip? The true gossip. Then she hands you a fig and says, the girl in the olive grove is writing poetry about you. You blink. That's unexpected. She shrugs. She rhymed Apollo with swallow. I think it needs work. The gossip travels fast. Not because it's urgent, because shepherds are lonely, and loneliness sharpens memory. You begin to participate. You share small things. A dream you had about goats learning to sing. The fact that Melanto licks rocks when she's anxious. That one time you saw a star fall upward. They take these stories, pass them along, embellish, rewrite, laugh, forget. But they always listen. By the time the moon rises, someone is already telling a new version of your tale. He was a prince. No, a soldier. A bard cursed to live among beasts. A god, hiding from shame. A widow. No, Wait, two widows in disguise. You smile into your stew. Let them guess. Sometimes the truth isn't a secret, it's just more interesting when shared wrong. You smell the storm before you see it. It arrives at first as a tingle behind the eyes. Then the scent of iron, wet stone, and panic. The sheep know. The goats definitely know. One of them, not Melantho, but her equally dramatic cousin, sprints across the field like he just remembered an appointment in another village. Then comes the sound. Thunder. Not the polite kind that rumbles like a stomach. No, this is Olympian thunder. The kind you used to cause. You look up at the sky. It's a bruised peach, pale on one side, deepening into that sickly purple-gray mess of an angry cloud bank. The wind arrives second. It slaps, then pulls, then whispers, "Time to run." You don't. The other shepherds are already shouting. Whistles pierce the field. Crooks wave like frantic flags. You grab the rope, the long one, the one that smells like goat pee and damp ambition, and start moving. No divinity, no song, just knots and tension and breath. The sheep scatter. One climbs a rock that's clearly not meant for climbing. Another rolls down a hill and forgets how to stand up. 3 disappear into the grove. Melantho headbutts a tree and then looks offended it didn't move. The wind takes your words and chews them. "Here! No, wait over there! Don't eat that!" Someone nearby loses a sandal. You think it's yours. Then lightning. It hits a tree across the valley. Not near, but close enough to taste. The smell of burning fills the air. Old bark. New leaves. Fear. You don't flinch. Instead, you whistle low. 2 tones the way the old woman taught you last week. Some of the flock turns. Enough to matter. You round them like thoughts trying to escape your head. A fire starts. Not big, not fast. Just smoldering, threatening. Someone yells for water. Someone else falls. You drop your rope, grab a bucket, and throw ash and mud instead of water. It works. Probably because the fire was tired. You look around. The field is a battlefield. Wool everywhere. Broken fence. A goat chewing the hem of someone's wedding tunic. But no one's hurt. No one's missing. Except for Spira. You don't pause. You don't think. You run. You find her at the edge of the grove, tangled in bramble, bleeding softly, as if embarrassed. You untangle her, whisper something stupid, carry her back like she weighs nothing. The others cheer, or maybe they're just relieved. You don't need applause. You just need air. That night, around the fire, no one says much. You sit on a rock, clothes singed, knees scratched, heart steady. Someone hands you soup. Someone else throws a stick on the fire. Someone leans against your shoulder and mutters, "You didn't call down the lightning." You nod. Didn't need to. They smile. Good. You sleep hard that night. No dreams. No names in the wind. Just the quiet knowledge that even without powers, you handled it. You can't sleep. Too much lightning still lingers in your limbs. Too many voices. Too much soup. So you walk. Up the hill. Past the grove. Beyond the stones and the places where stories cling. You carry nothing. Wear your old cloak. And follow the path only shepherds and regrets seem to know. At the top, the wind changes. Not loud. Not cold. Just sharper, like it's brushing dust off your thoughts. You sit on your favorite rock. It doesn't have a name, but it fits your back and never judges your posture. You lean into the silence. Above, the stars stretch out clearer than they've looked in centuries. Some of them, you remember lighting yourself. You exhale. Still there, huh? They twinkle, which is unfair, because stars don't actually twinkle, that's the air. But they let you pretend. You name them, softly, the way you did when you were young and worshipped. Not their divine names, not the constellations written by priests and poets. Your names. That one's Owl's Toe. That's the lost cup. That one is just a mistake that still glows. You chuckle. The stars do not respond. There's a shepherd's tale about retirement. Not divine. Just rural. They say when an old herder has had enough, he climbs the highest hill, stares at the stars, and asks one simple question: did I keep them alive? If the wind answers with silence, he goes back down and sleeps. If it doesn't, well, no one ever finishes the story. You ask the question now: did I do enough? The wind shifts. A branch rustles. A goat sneezes in the valley below. You smile. Good enough. The stars remind you of things you forgot. The first time you lit a torch with a prayer. The last time someone made you a song without asking for a favor. The middle moment, sometime centuries ago, when you laughed so hard you forgot why you were worshipped. You reach into your tunic and pull out the lyre. Its strings hum gently in the starlight. You play one note, then another, then a third that wobbles but survives. It's not perfect, but it's honest. You don't think about Olympus tonight. You don't think about temples or offerings or scrolls with your name in gold. You think about cheese and moss and the way the sheep learned your whistle faster than your name. You think about Spira, snoring softly in her hay nest. You think about the fire and the stew and the thunder you didn't call down. You pluck one more note, soft, round, full of dirt and sky. The wind shifts again, and this time, it doesn't carry your name. It just lets you be. You knew something was up when Damar started smiling. Not the usual half smirk he wears when a goat gets stuck in a bucket. A real smile, teeth and all. The kind of smile that says, something fermented is about to be shared. By midday, it's official. Someone's cousin has returned from the lowlands with a sack full of early wine. Very early. Too early. Possibly illegal. Definitely dangerous. Which means one thing. It's party time. There's no reason for it. No wedding. No harvest. No visiting dignitary. Just the feeling. The feeling that the sheep didn't die this week. That the rain waited until the bread was dry. That your back only hurts a little. Sometimes that's enough. You help carry barrels that smell like sour figs and questionable decisions. You chop herbs for stew that might involve something still twitching. You sweep out the big barn, where dancing happens when someone plays two notes correctly in a row. Tonight, the lyre does not rest. Someone lights a dozen oil lamps and strings them from poles like glowing onions. Children run barefoot in loops. Elders pretend not to dance while clearly dancing. You watch, cup in hand, sipping something that tastes like vinegar and joy. You don't resist when they pull you into the circle. Your feet are filthy. Dust, ash, old grape skins. Your robe is already stained. You step once, twice, then remember rhythm. Someone yells. He moves like a goat that read poetry. You bow deeply. Thank you. They roar. Later, there's a game involving slapping someone gently with a broom when they sing off-key. You get hit 5 times. It's fair. Nicandros plays a flute made from an ox bone. It's missing 2 notes. No one cares. You try to keep up with a spoon against a pot. You fail. Melantho walks away, visibly disappointed in your percussion. Wine sloshes. Voices rise. Someone sings about a moon that fell in love with a donkey and ran away with a cheese cart. You swear you wrote that story once. In marble. Now it's sung barefoot in a barn, off-key, with fig juice on everyone's chin. You've never been prouder. As the fire burns low, people fall into soft piles of straw and warm limbs. Laughter drifts like smoke. No one's in a hurry to leave the moment. You lie down, head spinning gently. Someone throws a blanket over your legs. You hum. Just a note. It joins the others. It stays. For a while, you are not Apollo, not a god, not a shepherd, just a man with dirt on his toes, laughter in his throat, and music in his chest. And when you fall asleep, still smiling, you dream nothing. Because tonight, you were already inside the dream. You wake up to silence. Not eerie silence, the good kind. The kind that means the goats haven't broken anything yet, and no one's arguing about the stew. You stretch. Something pops in your shoulder. A goat licks your ankle and wanders off like it didn't just wake you up. You sit up slowly, rub your eyes. There's something in front of you. It's not food. It's not shoes. It's an object, wrapped in wool, slightly damp, questionably chewed, and clearly a gift. You blink at it, then glance around. The sheep are nearby, pretending not to look at you. One nibbles a stick. One is standing on top of a barrel like it's giving a speech. You pick up the bundle. It's warm. It's lumpy. It smells faintly of hay, olive oil, and mystery. You unwrap it. Inside is a spoon. Not a new spoon. Not a good spoon. A gnawed, slightly bent, goat-lick spoon, carved from figwood, unevenly stained with something that might be wine or blood, or possibly beet juice. You hold it in both hands. It's terrible. It's perfect. Someone walks past, sees the spoon, and grins. They've accepted you. With a spoon, they only chew things they trust. You look at the spoon again. Now it feels holy. In ancient rural custom, a shepherd receiving a gift from his flock, no matter how strange, was seen as a blessing. A sign of quiet luck, of shared rhythm, of belonging. Some legends say a sheep once gave a pebble to a priest, and it healed his cough. Others say goats used to bring moss to people with broken hearts. You're not sure what your spoon means, but your heart feels weirdly full. You bring it to the fire, set it beside your bowl, use it to stir the barley mash. It works, kind of. One edge splinters into the porridge, but no one notices. That night, someone asks what it is. A gift, you say. From who? You glance at the sheep, the ones who don't clap. They nod. Accepted. No further questions. Before bed, you carve your name into the handle. Not your divine name. Just Theo, the name they gave you when you arrived. It fits the curve of the wood, just like your hands finally do. It comes in your sleep. Not a thunderbolt. Not a vision. Just a quiet return to somewhere that no longer knows your scent. You're dreaming, but it feels like walking. You recognize the marble, the geometry of it, the way sound never quite disappears in Olympus, just folds back into the columns. The sky is too blue. The steps are too white. Everything polished, exact, gleaming with the kind of perfection that never smells like bread. You walk the halls. The statues nod. The wind sighs. And no one greets you. The lyre is where you left it, in the chamber near the east portico. It shines too much now, as if it hasn't been played in 100 years. You reach for it, but hesitate. Your fingers smell like sheep. You laugh. The room does not. You step outside. There are clouds below you. Not poetic fog, actual clouds. You could leap, glide, fly, all the things you used to do without thinking. Now, you just sit. On the steps, barefoot, wool on your hem. One of your sandals still has straw in it. You pluck at your dream lyre. The notes echo. Too far, too clean. You miss the broken one. A voice arrives behind you. You're not staying, are you? It's Hestia. Warm eyes, soft hands, smelling faintly of cinnamon and ash. You shake your head. I think I left something unfinished. You always do. They gave me a spoon. She smiles. Then you're theirs now. You wake before she speaks again. Back in your straw mat. Back in your valley. The stars outside blink without watching. You press your hand to your chest. Still beating. Still slow. Still yours. You rise before the others. Step outside. Breathe. It doesn't smell like Olympus. It smells like goat, and it's perfect. You don't mean to do it. There's no ceremony, no altar, no humming lyre or spilled wine or golden glow. You're just trimming a hoof. Melantho, as always, is being dramatic. She flops to the side with a sound that would suggest mortal injury. You roll your eyes, lift her leg, and mutter, "Stay still, blessed beast." The words slip out. Old habit. The kind of thing you used to say in temples, over generals, kings, and cows, but you say it to a goat. and something changes. Not lightning, not music, just wool, a shimmer, barely visible, like heat rising from stone. Melantho stiffens, snorts, sneezes. Then, her coat fluffs, glistens slightly. She trots away like she's just won an award. You frown. An hour later, someone passes by her and says, "That goat looks expensive." Another nods. "Shinier. Smells better too." You shrug. Must be the diet. By dusk, 3 more goats nuzzle your leg. One drops a twig at your feet. Another rests her chin on your knee and stares meaningfully. You check her for injuries. Nothing. You scratch behind her ears. She glows. Briefly. Just a flicker. Just enough to startle the cat sleeping nearby. The next morning, the goat pen smells of rosemary. No one added rosemary. The milk pail overflows. The wool is fluffier. Someone finds an egg nestled between 2 sleeping rams. "We don't have chickens," they say. You just nod. Ancient myths always exaggerated divine blessings. Tenfold harvests. Golden Fleece. Goats that spoke in riddles and solved murders. You never aimed for that. But still, things improve. The sick goat stands straighter. The old ram starts keeping watch at night. The young ones stop chewing the laundry for 1 whole afternoon. It's the quiet kind of blessing. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that only those who watch carefully will notice. One girl comes to you, holding a kid in her arms. "Can you do the thing?" "What thing?" "The glowy thing." You pose. "I didn't mean to." She shrugs. "Still worked." You reach out. Touch the kid gently on the head. No glow. Just warmth. But she smiles anyway. That night, the goats gather closer. They curl around your mat like sentinels. Melantho rests her head on your sandal. You whisper, "You're welcome." And for the first time, you feel forgiven. You wake before the fire dies. It's still dark, the kind of dark that isn't quite black, but waiting. The stars haven't left, but they've begun to loosen their grip. The goats are still asleep, Melantho snoring. Spira curled beside your sandal like a punctuation mark. You rise slowly. No stiffness today. No ache in your ribs or knees. You gather your things. There aren't many. A spoon, your lyre, the robe with the patched shoulder, a small cloth bag filled with whatever bread the old woman snuck into it last night. You look around. No one stirs. That's how you wanted it. There's no ceremony. No divina chariot. No glowing exit. Just a walk. Past the fig tree. Past the stone circle. Past the fence you fixed twice after a goat forgot how turning works. You stop at the gate. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the wind knows, and it touches your face like a nod. You look back once. The village is still wrapped in sleep. The smoke from last night's fire curling up like a yawn. You see your corner. The worn mat, the patch of moss you finally made peace with. The goats. You smile. You whisper, "Take care of each other." And you walk. The path is familiar now. Even the rocks seem to remember you. A shepherd's crook leans against a tree you never saw anyone plant. You leave it there. You don't need it anymore. You reach the ridge just as the light begins to spill over the hills. The gold doesn't blind you. It warms you. You sit for a moment, pull out the lyre, strum it once. Unnoticed. Imperfect. Beautiful. You don't look back again. You walk east, not toward Olympus, not toward any temple, just forward. Behind you, the village wakes. Someone finds your mat empty. Someone sees the spoon's absence. A child notices the goats are sitting a little straighter today. They'll ask where you went. Someone will say, "He was a shepherd." Someone else will say, "No, he was more." No one will argue. They'll just eat the bread, fix the fence, sing badly, and carry on. It's years later. The sheep still graze. The goats still argue with fence posts. The fig tree has grown sideways. Children climb it now. The older ones remember your songs, or think they do. They hum fragments while weaving baskets or chasing chickens that no one ever remembers buying. Someone replaced your sleeping mat with a bench. The moss grew around it. No one minds. The wind still whispers. Sometimes it carries your name. Sometimes not. One morning, a child named Lysandra digs near the fire pit. She's looking for nothing. That's how the best things are found. Her fingers hit something round, smoothed by time and ash. She brushes it clean. A spoon, wooden, fine-grain, carved. The handle bears a name she doesn't know, Theo scratched in crooked lines. She brings it to her grandmother. What's this? The old woman turns it over. Smiles. A gift. From who? A shepherd. Long ago. A good one. They use it that night to stir the stew. The handle creaks. The bowl of it leaks a little. No one cares. Someone swears the stew tastes better. Someone else says it smells like thyme and sun. That night, Lysandra sets the spoon beside her blanket. Not because it's magic. Not because it glows. Just because it feels kind. Far away, you dream. Not of Olympus. Not of temples. Of a spoon. A song. And a lamb that once snored against your knee. The stars blink. The wind forgets your name. But the earth remembers your weight. And that is enough. End of script. Sweet dreams.